my name is Julia Tittelbach. I am a policy researcher at Vocal Europe. Welcome to this podcast episode on the current situation in Ukraine and the prospects of EU-Ukraine relations in the wake of the Russian military buildup. It is a great pleasure as well as an honor to be joined today by His Excellency Mykola Tochytskyi, head of the mission of Ukraine to the EU, as well as ambassador to Luxembourg and Belgium. Prior to His Excellency's appointment as ambassador, he has distinguished himself throughout his career in former positions, such as permanent representative of Ukraine to the Council of Europe, head of the General Service on International Cooperation in the Secretariat of the President of Ukraine, as well as director of the cabinet of the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency, I am truly delighted that you agreed to this exchange today, despite your hectic agenda. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you to invite me to have a discussion with you, and it's a great pleasure, and I am delighted to have our chat, our conversation.
Thank you. So then let's start right away with the very first question. What is your take on the current situation in East Ukraine, and what does the Russian military buildup mean for Ukraine, but also the EU and the international community?
Julie, first of all, let me start by saying that we are maybe not in declare, but in war with Russian Federation, so-called, hybrid war, and everything what Russia does last few months is just a continuity of the strategy which our north neighbor has, just to keep Ukraine under control, and its sphere of geopolitical interest, to force us to abolish the idea to join, EU, NATO. And this is not only about organizations, it's about the philosophy which we choose after independence, to be not only geographically, but mentally a nation which would like to build our future on a basis of values, the same which our partner in EU, in so-called, large Western part of world are sharing. That's why they continue to show to us and also to the West. They just tested, putting this more than 100,000 troops around our border and illegally occupied Crimea, and they just look at how Ukraine and our Western partner will react.
Thank you very much. So you've already alluded to it. So when we observe the Russian military buildup, there seem to be different scenarios that could be possible with regards to the Kremlin's intention. It could be mere saber rattling to its Kiev. You've already alluded to the Euro-Atlantic agenda, Ukraine's democratic choice. Or is it, as you also already mentioned, about testing the West, including maybe especially the US President Biden? Or is it indeed preparation for engaging into a major military conflict?
First of all, of course, that this is, so-called strategy always to destabilize our nation, our country, just not allow to us to build, a democratic, market-oriented, values-oriented nation. And because, first of all, it's not a Ukraine or our nation or Kyiv which are a threat for Russia. It's a democratic, stable Ukraine who will create a problem to our, neighbor. I mean, to Kremlin, not to nation as Russia, but to this regime, because immediately in those country, the people can ask Putin and his entourage, so look, how it's possible that in Ukraine you have one situation even after 70 years common life in the Soviet Union, and in Russia, which, you know, a big country with a great potential, great people, we are living like in, you know, in 14th or 16th centuries. That's why, you know, the goal is to travel always and to test, of course, new American administration, Biden administration, to see how it will be reaction and what kind of, you know, what kind of unity EU, NATO, North America, I mean, United States, Canada can have towards such an aggressive attitude of Russia and Putin. And I can tell you that he provoked, and from one hand. From other hand, you know, we, frankly, we are ready. It's not like in 2014 when it was, you know, first without any declaration annexation of Crimea, and after that, this aggressive and military presence of Russia in Donbass. We are ready, we well equipped, and we sense our partner from the West and also from the East, because, you know, we have also a partner in the East which also supported Georgia, Moldova, Turkey, the nations which respect territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine.
So since 2014, several agreements had been reached. We had the Minsk I agreement, the Minsk II agreement, a ceasefire had been agreed on in July last year. And yet the ceasefire had been violated several times. Indeed, we have seen that Kiev and Moscow accuse each other of having broken it or of breaking it. What is your take on the prospects of actually successfully implementing the existing agreements on the short, but also on the long term?
Let me start by saying that, you know, especially during the last few years, no doubt in, you know, each of democratic society, that the people understood the place and the role of Russia in this so-called annexation and aggression in the east of Ukraine. Russia are not mediator, it's aggressor, and the last visit of President Michel to administrative border and, you know, in the east of Ukraine, he already clear mentions that we in EU know very well that Russia is a part of the conflict and not a mediator. And this is essential, basic element from which we can go to explain what's going on with Minsk and Normandy. First of all, we don't see any for the moment solution to Normandy process, and we remember very well that thanks to our you know, Western partner France, Germany, colleagues from EU and America, we just stopped Russian aggression in the east. Second, Minsk, you know, from his beginning, President Zelensky does a lot of steps to show Russian Kremlin regime that we take seriously this, you know, challenge. We know that it's not easy for our Ukrainian people in Crimea and in occupied territory of Donbass, and we will care about, and we would like to have a solution of this war. As a result, you know, after December 19th Paris talks, we promise and we does. You know, we organized a new how to say passage, you know, from our government state territory control to occupied territory. We create a new checkpoints. We are trying to build confidence between you know, Ukraine and the people which are under effective control of Russian Federation. And since last August, President Zelensky announced, ceasefire, and it was a successful few months. But at the end, again, everybody understood who wouldn't like to respect the agreement which we achieved in Paris, in Normandy talks. And after that, we know that even the last proposal, again, during this, military Russian troops built in the east and in Crimea, we propose a new vision, new version in the Minsk group. No reply. And the new old sentence of Putin talks with the separatists and this, so-called Donetsk and Lugansk Republic. This is not a new, this is an old one. When he wouldn't like to have any conversation about the peaceful solution in the East, he always send Ukrainian administration to this, Moscow governed people in occupied Donetsk and Lugansk. Just to be clear, if we will have a Kremlin new vision to this war in Donbass, we can solve this issue, very quickly. But it seems to be that Putin liked very much the status quo of occupied territory. He continues through this trouble to create destabilization internally in Ukraine, and just how to say, trying to stop our state building and our West-oriented, how to say, move. And I think that President Zelensky administration does a lot, and they will continue, of course, because it's our people, and we don't have any right, to stop, to propose, and to help our Ukrainians on illegally occupied territories. But at the same time, we need to continue to reform Ukraine. This is two things which we must leave during the next few years. But frankly, our successes will be, a better basis to solve the situation in the East. I mean, success of the nation in general.
So, having talked about the agreements on one hand, let's have a closer look maybe now at the negotiation process. I've also already mentioned the Normandy group, and that Moscow actually uses its blocking power in the Normandy group and tries to shift the negotiation center of gravity to the Minsk contact group, where the West is unrepresented, while Moscow in return holds 3 chairs, its own and the ones and those of Donetsk and Lugansk, and positioned itself, as you also mentioned, rather as a mediator instead of being party of the conflict. What is your distinguished assessment of this negotiation process, and what are the possibilities and limits of these current negotiation frameworks? And what do you expect, especially from Paris and Berlin?
First of all, let me thank our partner in Paris and Berlin with the pension and the, how to say, credibility which they provide to this process. And we don't see any other possible means to solve this situation than to use a diplomatic and political instrument. And I think Normandy, it's a good possible platform for those. Of course, we see, especially these few months, that Moscow wouldn't like to talk. They wouldn't like to have any constructive approach. And as I already mentioned, they, for the moment, would like to test a new American administration. They would like to see how in such a difficult situation in the world, like fight against COVID, the European colleagues, our other partners will react on this. They would like to, as always, Putin does, to sell something for something. And they never had the interest to have an effective and constructive talk. Look, let's start by reminding Budapest Agreement. And you remember very well that in this agreement, Russia, with other nuclear powers, announced that they will not use any armed forces against Ukraine. So it means that doesn't matter what kind of agreement you will have. If you have a country which are involved and don't have any interest to stop the violation, to create a condition for discussion, you will never achieve whatever you call. But I would like to repeat that we thank our European partner for this. We, of course, you can hear from different, politicians in Ukraine and within Ukraine that we would like to have United States in this process. We would like to have, our northern partners. We would like to have maybe a good friends from Baltic state or from Poland. But we have a Normandy process. We respect a lot our partner and help of our partners, which reacted immediately. I would like to repeat and remind that just when Russia started with any explanation to build up a military presence on a border in Ukraine and occupied Crimea, the whole democratic world, EU, NATO, United States, UK, our Baltic partners reacted on this situation. And I think the only unity of the nations, of democratic nations, and the only demonstration of those unity, the explanation to Russia what kind of reaction and what kind of what kind of bill to pay if they will aggress again Ukraine openly can stop this Kremlin Putin attitudes against Ukraine. In Ukraine, in reality, it's not just a war between Ukraine and Russia. It's a war between two different civilizations. It's a civilization, young one, I mean, Ukraine, which choose to have in our basis democratic values, the European values, and we paid a huge, enormous price for the moment since 2014. And we continue to pay this price, and we will never choose another direction. And this is about, a non-democratic state, which never, I repeat, never been a democratic. If you look on a past, they even don't know what does mean to have a democracy. And zone of influence. It's about the mind of president which continue to think by categories of 19th century. And we have a concrete, steps to propose to Russia. Look, if you will disturb the nation which has absolutely right to have a choice. You will pay this or that price. And believe me, our European partners understand this very well, and we are very thankful to to as ambassadors, political and military of EU, which are visiting East, looking himself what's going on, showing the flags, the presence, sending the humanitarian aid, because this is about the goal of Ukraine. This is about to join a democratic, free nation, the world of the free nation. This is not about to return to this club of the people which would like to create always a problem for everybody. So that's why we will continue to move on this direction, and we don't have any other choice. We have a responsibility on those which give his life in 2014 and till today.
Thank you very much for this very good elaboration and your insight on that. So speaking about a united response from the West, a united signal of support, and speaking also of not only about your European partners, but also about the American partners, President Biden affirmed also Washington's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity in the face of Russia's aggression, and also the G7, condemned Russia's action. So how can then a joint transatlantic and credible signal of support towards Ukraine or signal of warning towards Russia look like? You've already briefly mentioned being present, but maybe you can elaborate a bit.
Yeah. We are really grateful to all our international friends. And I already mentioned United States, Canada, Great Britain, EU, NATO, and you know from the press and from your colleagues that in NATO headquarters they immediately discussed with our minister the situation in EU. It was a concrete and direct reaction of the democratic world to Russia. Second, we are absolutely lucky to have America back to the world, to the normal democratic European world, because it's not only possibility to European Union to show, to all democratic states to show this unity, but also for Ukraine to have a, secure possibility to continue to reform our country. Because if you feel support of your partner, it's more even moral. It's more easy to explain and to continue your politics which you chosen. Second, of course, we consider that this strong position of the West played a major role in recent days for Putin decisions. Because, in any case, if you started to build military presence, more than 100,000 people, soldiers, on a border with a country, it's always very dangerous. And let me remind, for example, that Ukrainian special services arrested on the east of Ukraine so-called special troops, which was sent by special agent to the border between in Kharkiv region between Ukraine and Russia, just to destabilize the situation with Russian troops. And who knows what kind of result can be if our security service doesn't work properly. That's why, the West was united and they played, NATO and the EU played the major role in this situation. Second, I think we will continue to call our Western partner, don't lose the attention on this situation. Of course, Russian Minister of Defense announced that they will withdraw. But let's see. First of all, they started, but where will be so-called these special tactical brigades concentrated? Just withdrawing from 50 kilometers from the border, or they will return on his headquarters. I don't think that, how to say, that you can trust to any words of Putin administration. Second, I think that we will ask again and again our partners to support us on, on a building of military tactical our resilience. We need to, as I said to you from the beginning, we are different now. I mean, our soldier, our army are different from 2014. They are very well equipped, very well trained, and this is also, you would like or not, but this is also some kind of, preparation and so-called readiness, and to be, how to say, more clear, articulating that we need to have a membership action plan with NATO. And this is not only because of our, constitutional sentence that our future in Euro-Atlantic organizations. This is about philosophy. This is about the direction, and this is about mentality which each of Ukrainians should have. And it's some kind of, mobilization of the nation. You also need to know where you go. And I think the map for Ukraine is a very good signal to our eastern neighbor, to Kremlin regime that, look, Ukraine choose his future, and they will never turn back.
And thank you for this elaboration. So we have now already talked about the transatlantic signal, about how the West has responded so far and should continue to support Russia. The use tactic over the past years in the smoldering Ukraine crisis has been about conducting pressure through restrictive measures. You have also outlined that already, the diplomatic efforts, continuing dialogue, etc. Since 2014, in fact, but yet the Russian troop amassing had been taking place. So which measures by the Europeans and the EU would then be adequate and credible to de-escalate the situation and further support Ukraine? Because we have to think, I think, on one hand about credible deterrence, so support Ukraine, and on the other hand, what happens if conflict indeed escalates?
The best reply to any de-escalation of Russia is first to be vocal and clear in supporting Ukraine. First. Second, with this support, with this communication to Russia, and we need to repeat, because Russia shows that in few months they can forget what it was said before. What it was said last week from democratic nations to Russia that, look, Kremlin, you will pay a high price and you can have a disaster if you will touch Ukraine. Second, we need to have a consolidation of the solidarity with Ukrainian people. Ukrainian people merit to be supported. And this is not a simple war. I think, protecting our territory, we also protect the Western territory. And this is not the first time in the history. And this is not a simple, slogan. And you know this very well. That's why, a positive signal to the nation that, colleagues, we respect not only your territorial integrity and sovereignty, but we respect your choice. And thank you for this, and we are with you. After that, I think, the visit of high-ranking and not only even ambassadors, like it was a few years ago, to administrative or fighting line with Russia, it's also a very strong signal to Ukrainians living there and in the whole Ukraine, and to Russia that we don't forget. If it's not, each of day discussion on TV or mass media about Donbass and occupied Crimea, it doesn't mean that we forgot this. And Russia, you will have in any case obligation to return this territory back and to pay, morally, to the people, to the family which you destroyed their future. Also, the cooperation with the EU, and for example, to put some concrete, security-related issue in Eastern Partnership, it can be also a good sign for Russia and for our partners. I mean, Georgia, Moldova, Azerbaijan, that look, guys, we are carrying with you. It's not only about, to take you on a distance and to propose you from day to day something. It's about a common future, secure future for you and for us. We also must, countering on our EU partners and NATO partners on countering hybrid threats and cyber and disinformation threats, which are going each of day from this regime, Kremlin regime. We already announced and we prefer to be closer to this, PESCO initiative. And we are very delighted and very happy to have a proposal to a different dimension to cooperate and to be closer to this strategy. Also, even and this is already confirmed by President Michel and Vice President Borrell, participation in Crimean summit in Kyiv in August. It's also a very clear demonstration of the West that looks, we are with you, we are with the Ukrainian nation, and we are building together with you a democratic, stable, and market-oriented nation and state.
So, on the short term then, for now, it's very much about increasing the costs for Russia for daring for daring more, but also being visible, as you said, so that the EU is visible in Ukraine with the Ukrainians, with the people, with the nation. You've also now alluded what should be done on the long term, what your expectations are towards the EU on the long term when it comes to supporting Kyiv's reform progress and the Euro-Atlantic agenda. Can you elaborate a bit more?
Of course, we thankful to EU for the sanctions which were adopted after annexation of and occupation of Crimea and Russian aggression in the east, in Donbass and Lugansk. We think that it's a time not only because of Russian aggression, but also a Russian attitude internally. I'm talking now about, Navalny case or Novichok, everything. It's a time for EU to discuss a new, sanction regime, sectorial sanction regime. And we also hear that it doesn't work. This is not right. It works. And maybe it's not an immediate result, but believe me, it's something which disturbs Kremlin regime a lot. Second, I think, a new sectorial sanction, particular, to switch of Russia from the SWIFT banking system, it can be something, real at that situation. I think there also we, in principle, must react on any Russian attitude not to respect international law. For example, we are talking about last 2 weeks military build-up on a border with Ukraine. But at the same time, we are not allowed to use a Kerch entrance and Azov Sea as a sea, because Russia blocked everything. And the Russian, FSB vessels and peoples provoked each of day a Ukrainians just to have a, immediate reaction and create on a basis of this reaction a new, escalation, a new case where Russia will talk like it's in 2019 that we attacked a Russian fleet, or we not respect international law. I think, for each of human rights violation by Russian regime, it must be united reaction of the West. It's a demonstration not only for Russia, but for all us, that we don't forget that we have a values. And those values was and is or are on a basis of our democratic institutions. And this is something what we can do together. And I think this is something what we must do on a daily basis.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this question and for elaborating on it. As we have seen, and we've already briefly spoken about it, that this situation is indeed very dynamic and it's changing on a daily basis. So last week, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced the withdrawal of military forces from the Ukrainian border. What is your assessment of this new dynamic? Could that be a sign of Russia taking steps of de-escalation, and how should Ukraine respond, or how should its partners respond, and what are the next steps to be taken, taking into account this new dynamic? And what do you expect for the upcoming month?
Yes, you're absolutely right that Minister of Defense of Russia announced that they will withdraw the armed forces from our border and occupy Crimea. And they announced this process should be completed by 1st May. Actually, I can remind that this is Easter for the Orthodox, and it's also some kind of symbolism. What Russia demonstrated to common West by building this military presence in the West, that they can do this very quickly, even if they use some kind of, armaments which are not new one, but they are very mobile. Second, they also wanted to see a reaction of Ukrainians and of the Westerns on this situation, and tested how quickly and how strong will be this reaction. And the last one, I don't have any doubt that they will do this, in a few months, because let me remind that on the beginning I mentioned that the democratic, prosperous, Western-oriented Ukraine is a threat for Russia, and they will do for any means not allowed to our nation to finish with, judiciary reform, decentralization reform, land reform, because it's about success of Ukraine. And immediately, you will have a question internally in Russia, why one so-called for them brother nation can be successful and we are not. That's why I ask our Western partner, keep attention on Russia, show this unity not only to Ukraine, but also to our partners in Moldova, Georgia, Azerbaijan, just to remind Russia that, look, zone of influence, it's a past. The nations which decided 30 years ago to be independent of, on any decision, and decided to move to the West, not geographically, because we are more, in any case, in Europe, but mentally, and also just to return historically to the club of people which was on the basis of building of modern Ukraine. Excuse me, Ukraine is the past, but modern today. And believe me, we need to continue this way. We need your support, and together, only together we can win. And I'm sure that one of the day you will ask for the interview another Ukrainian ambassador, and he will be more than happy to tell you that we succeed.
I hope so. I hope so. I'm looking forward to it. May I ask one final question before this podcast episode is already over again? Time goes by so fast. Since you also emphasized several times now, it's about the people, and we should not forget about the Ukrainian nation and the people. I was wondering about Russia's passport policy. So since 2019, Russia is suspected to have issued up to 650,000 passports, which might suggest a Georgia scenario to take place, or as a possible Russian long-term objective. So in fact, President Putin's deputy chief of staff, Dmitry Kozak, warned that Russia would indeed defend its citizens in eastern Ukraine if fighting escalated. How could this situation be dealt with, and how could also your European partners, so the EU, could engage here apart from non-recognition regarding those passports?
First of all, we have each of few months of discussion with our partners in the EU about such a situation. We know the people who decided to decided to have such a decision to provide the passport to Ukrainian citizen and the people who organize this process. And we share with our European partners this information. Just in case if we will have additional discussion on sanctions on it. Second, passportization and protection of Russian in abroad, it's a classic, instrument of Russian strategy just to create trouble in different part of Europe and using such a people just to control Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova from the strategy to join the West. And they only reply to this. You remember that when Russia started to build up armed forces on the border, they started so-called by this girl with boy. It means that they started to articulate that we need to protect Russian in Ukraine. After that, they changed the purposes, and at the end they withdraw. It means that this instrument, this is one of effective instrument to announce aggression against independent state because they will protect. And let me remind that they have people with Russian passport not only in Ukraine, and this is why we must be careful with this. And we are paying attention, and we know that the only response to such a situation can be that we will build successful country, and the people which get such a passport one day will decide to change this passport to Ukrainian one. This is the only possibility in our case when you are dealing with a big, aggressive, non-educated neighbor.
Thank you for your insight on this last question. And yes, that was already the last question. Your Excellency, thank you so much for dedicating your precious time for our conversation and for sharing your insight on the current situation with Ukraine, which is very dynamic as we are experiencing. I really enjoyed our exchange. It was very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, because first of all, because we also are interested to share with our Western partner what's going on and what is our vision and why President Zelensky administration doesn't do a lot just to have a success in Normandy process. And second, it's always a pleasure to have a chat with people which are interested and well know the region. And this is also very rich for me to, to feel what is to test the water. Thank you very much, and good luck to you and to your project, because it's a very good one.
Thank you.